I was working at a hostel in Prague when an American backpacker asked me something I'll never forget. So, like, what do Czech people do for fun? I listed some things. Hiking, beer gardens, concerts, hanging out with friends. Normal stuff. He looked disappointed. But like, what makes you special? I didn't understand the question. He tried again. Like, what's your thing? Your talent? What makes you stand out? I shrugged. I don't know. I just live my life. He seemed genuinely confused by this. But don't you want to be somebody? I told him I already was somebody. He walked away looking concerned for me. That conversation stuck with me because I kept seeing the same pattern everywhere. Americans abroad, constantly confused by how normal everyone else is comfortable being. My friend worked at a university in Amsterdam. She said American exchange students would panic during introductions. Everyone else would just say their name and where they're from. The Americans would launch into full resumes. I'm Brad. I'm pre-med. I volunteer at 3 nonprofits. I run a small business, and I'm learning Mandarin. The Dutch students would just stare. One finally said, "Okay, but what do you like to do?" Brad looked lost. "What do you mean?" "I just told you." Another time, I was at a dinner party in Berlin. An American guest asked everyone at the table what their 5-year plan was. Dead silence. A German guy finally said, "I don't have one." The American pushed. "Come on, you must have goals." "Career goals? Life goals?" The German shrugged. "I want to be happy." "That's it." The American looked at him like he'd given up on life. Later, she told me she felt sad for Europeans because we don't have ambition. I asked what she meant. She said, "You guys are all just average, and you're okay with it." She said it like it was a tragedy. I'm telling you this because it's not about travel fails or cultural mix-ups. It's deeper than that. There's something in American culture that makes being ordinary feel like failure. Like if you're not exceptional, you're invisible. And when Americans go abroad and see people living perfectly happy, average lives, it breaks their brain a little bit. They can't understand how someone can just exist without constantly trying to be more, do more, achieve more. These stories show that pattern over and over. Let's get into it. I worked at a cafe in Copenhagen. We had a regular customer, a Danish guy named Lars. He was an accountant. Came in every morning, ordered the same coffee, read his newspaper, left. Nice guy. One day, an American tourist sat next to him and they started chatting. The American asked what Lars did for work. "I'm an accountant," Lars said. The American waited for more. Nothing came. "Just an accountant?" he asked. Lars nodded. "For how long?" Lars thought about it. 15 years, maybe. The American looked shocked. "And you never wanted to do something else? Start your own firm? Move up to CFO?" Lars seemed confused by the question. "No, I like what I do. It pays well. I have time for my family." The American actually looked sad for him. He told Lars he should want more for himself. Lars just laughed and went back to his newspaper. My cousin works at a gym in Stockholm. She told me about an American member who couldn't understand the gym culture there. In Sweden, people work out to stay healthy. That's it. No one's training for a marathon unless they actually want to run a marathon. No one's doing intense meal prep unless they enjoy it. This American guy would show up every day with a detailed workout plan, tracking sheets, progress photos. He'd try to talk to other members about their fitness journey. They'd just say, "I'm exercising." He thought they weren't taking it seriously. He actually complained to my cousin that the other members lacked motivation. She told him, "They're plenty motivated. They show up, they work out, they go home." He couldn't wrap his head around exercising without some bigger goal attached to it. I studied abroad in France for a semester. There was this girl in my program from California. Super nice person, but she was stressed all the time. The French students would finish class and go get coffee or walk around. She'd rush back to her apartment to work on her personal brand. I asked her what that meant. She was building an Instagram presence, writing a blog, creating a YouTube channel, designing a website, all while being a full-time student. I asked why. She said, "I need to stand out when I apply for jobs." I asked if the jobs required any of that. She said no, but everyone's doing it. So if you're not, you're falling behind. The French students thought she was having a breakdown. They kept asking if she was okay. She was frustrated that they didn't get it. A friend of mine worked at a restaurant in Lisbon. An American couple came in for dinner. They were really interested in their waiter's life story. He was a 28-year-old guy, been waiting tables for 6 years. They asked him what his real job was. He looked confused. "This is my job," he said. They pushed more. "But what do you really want to do?" He didn't understand the question. "I want to keep working here." The wife looked concerned. She asked if he had dreams. "Yes," he said. "I want to save money and travel more. Maybe buy an apartment someday." They seemed disappointed. The husband said, "But you're so smart. You speak 3 languages. Don't you want to do something with your life?" The waiter just smiled. "I am doing something with my life. I'm living it." They left him a huge tip and a note that said, "Don't give up on your dreams." He showed it to the staff, and everyone laughed. I was on a group tour in Ireland once. An American woman kept asking the tour guide personal questions. The guide was in her 40s, been doing tours for 12 years. The woman asked if she ever wanted to level up and start her own tour company. The guide said no. She liked working for someone else. Less stress. The woman asked if she'd considered writing a book about Irish history. The guide said she hadn't. The woman asked if she'd thought about becoming a motivational speaker or getting into tourism consulting. The guide finally stopped and said, "I'm happy with my life as it is." The woman looked genuinely sorry for her. Later, she told the group she felt inspired to appreciate what she had because she'd met someone who'd settled. The guide heard her and just rolled. Her eyes. "My brother worked a summer job at a hotel in Vienna. He said American guests were always surprised when they learned he was happy being a summer receptionist. They'd ask about his career goals. He'd say he was taking a gap year before university. They'd get excited and ask what he wanted to study. He'd say he didn't know yet. They'd start listing options: business, engineering, medicine, law. He'd say maybe philosophy or history. They'd get quiet. One guy actually said, "That's nice, but what will you do with that?" My brother said, "Learn things." The guy didn't know how to respond. He wished my brother good luck finding himself, like my brother was lost. I have a friend who teaches English in Japan. She told me about an American teacher who joined the staff. During the first meeting, the American introduced herself with a full presentation, talked about her teaching philosophy, her achievements, her goals for the students. It lasted 20 minutes. The Japanese teachers introduced themselves with their name and subject. That's it. The American was confused why no one else sold themselves. My friend explained that in Japan, humility is valued. The American said, "But how will anyone know what you're capable of?" The Japanese teachers looked at each other. One said, "They'll see our work." I worked at a bookstore in Edinburgh. A regular customer was a retired teacher. She'd come in once a week, buy a book, chat for a few minutes. Really lovely woman. An American tourist overheard her mention she was a retired teacher. He got excited and asked if she'd written any books. She said no. He asked if she'd consulted for schools or given TED Talks. She said no. He asked what she did all day. She said she read, gardened, spent time with her grandchildren. He looked confused. "But you have so much knowledge. Don't you want to share it?" She smiled. "I shared it for 40 years with my students. Now I'm enjoying my retirement." He seemed bothered by this. He told her she should leverage her expertise. She just laughed and bought her book. My sister lived in Portugal for 2 years. She made friends with a woman who worked part-time at a bakery and part-time as a translator. The woman seemed perfectly content. An American expat in their friend group kept pushing her to do more. Told her she should start a translation business, scale it up, hire people. The Portuguese woman said she didn't want that stress. She liked her flexible schedule. The American said, "But you could be making so much more money." The woman said, "I make enough." The American couldn't let it go. She kept sending the woman business articles and entrepreneurship podcasts. The woman finally told her, "I don't measure my life by my income." The American said, "Well, how do you measure it?" The woman said, "By how I feel each day." That was too abstract for the American to handle. I was at a wedding in Greece once. I sat next to an American guest at dinner. She asked what I did for work. I told her I was a freelance translator. She got excited. "Oh, so you run a translation business?" I said, "No, I just freelance." She asked how many clients I had. I said it varied, maybe 5 or 6 regular ones. She asked if I planned to expand. I said no. She asked why not. I said I liked my work-life balance. She said, "But if you expanded, you'd have more freedom, eventually." I asked when eventually was. She said maybe in 10 years after I'd built something big. I told her I had freedom now. She said it wasn't the same. I asked why. She couldn't really explain it. She just kept saying, "You could be doing so much more." I asked if she was happy with her job. She paused. "I'm working toward being happy." I didn't know what to say to that. A friend who works at a gallery in Brussels told me about an American artist who exhibited there. The artist kept asking the gallery owner why they didn't open more locations. The owner said they liked having one gallery. They could focus on quality. The artist said, "But you could be the next big gallery chain." The owner laughed. "I don't want to be a chain. I want to run this gallery." The artist genuinely didn't understand. They said, "But what's your end game?" The owner said, "This is it. This is the end game. I'm doing what I want to do." The artist looked depressed by this answer. Later, they told my friend they felt like Europeans had given up on their potential. My friend asked what potential. The artist said, "The potential to be great." My friend said, "Maybe we already feel great." I met an American digital nomad in Bali who was losing his mind over the locals. He kept saying they weren't ambitious enough. He'd hired a local assistant who worked for him 3 days a week. He wanted her to work 5 days. She said no. He offered more money. She still said no. She had other things to do. Family time, temple ceremonies, just relaxing. He told her she was leaving money on the table. She said she had enough money. He said, "But don't you want to build wealth?" She asked why. He said, "So you can retire early and do what you want." She said, "I'm already doing what I want." He was genuinely frustrated by this. He told me she had no drive. I asked if she was good at her job. He said yes, she was great. I asked what the problem was then. He said, she could be doing more. I asked if he needed her to do more. He admitted he didn't. He just couldn't stand that she was choosing not to. I worked at a co-working space in Berlin. The Europeans would work their hours and leave. The Americans would stay late, work weekends, and talk constantly about how busy they were. One American guy told me he was grinding on his startup. I asked how it was going. He said he was exhausted and stressed, but that's the price of success. A German co-worker overheard and said, "Or you could just work less and be less stressed." The American looked at him like he'd suggested giving up. "That's not how you build something great," he said. The German shrugged. "I built a successful business working 40 hours a week." The American didn't believe him. He actually asked to see proof. There was this weird thing where Americans would compete over who was most tired. I'd hear conversations like, "I only slept 4 hours last night." "Oh yeah? I haven't had a full night's sleep in weeks." "I literally can't remember the last time I wasn't exhausted." And they'd say it with pride, like being tired was an achievement. The Europeans would just stare. One Dutch woman finally said, "Why don't you just sleep more?" The Americans looked at her like she didn't understand hard work. One said, "Sleep is for people who aren't chasing their dreams." The Dutch woman said, Sleep is for people who want to be healthy and happy. They agreed to disagree. My friend worked at a tech company in Stockholm. They had an American employee who kept trying to prove how dedicated he was. He'd send emails at midnight. He'd work through lunch. He'd volunteer for every project. His Swedish manager finally pulled him aside and told him to stop. The American was confused, thought he was getting in trouble for not working enough. The manager said, "No, you're working too much. It's not sustainable, and it's making the team uncomfortable." The American said, "I'm just trying to show my value." The manager said, "We already know your value. That's why we hired you. Now go home at 5 like everyone else." The American couldn't adjust. He quit after 6 months because he felt underutilized. I was at a dinner party in Copenhagen where someone mentioned they took a 4-week vacation. An American guest gasped, "4 weeks? How?" The Danish person said, "It's my vacation time. Everyone gets 5 weeks here." The American looked pained. "But what about your work?" The Dane said, "It'll be there when I get back." The American said, "Don't you worry, someone will replace you?" The Dane laughed. "No, I have a contract." The American seemed disturbed by the whole concept. She told the group she hadn't taken more than 3 days off in 2 years. She expected sympathy. Instead, people looked concerned. Someone asked if she was okay. She said, "I'm fine. I'm just dedicated to my career." A Swedish guy said, "That doesn't sound fine. That sounds like burnout." She got defensive. "Americans work hard. It's just our culture." A Norwegian woman said, "It sounds more like a problem than a culture." I knew an American woman living in the Netherlands. She was always stressed, always busy, always doing something. Her Dutch neighbors would invite her to just hang out, sit outside, have a coffee, chat. She'd say she was too busy. They'd ask doing what. She'd list everything: side hustles, networking events, online courses, gym, meal prep, personal development. They'd ask when she relaxed. She'd say she didn't have time to relax. One neighbor said, "You know it's okay to do nothing sometimes, right?" She looked offended. "Doing nothing is wasting time." The neighbor said, "Doing nothing is living." She didn't get it. She moved back to America after a year because she said Europe was too slow-paced for her. My cousin worked at a marketing agency in Madrid. They hired an American consultant for a project. The consultant was shocked by the work culture. People took long lunches. They didn't check email after work hours. They actually used their vacation days. She asked my cousin how anything got done. My cousin said, "We work efficiently during work hours." The consultant said that wasn't enough. She wanted to schedule 6 a.m. meetings and weekend check-ins. The team refused. She complained to management that the team lacked hustle. Management told her the team's results were excellent and she should adapt to Spanish work culture. She couldn't. She kept pushing for more hours, more meetings, more availability. The team started avoiding her. The project still got done on time. She wrote in her final report that they succeeded despite the team's lack of ambition. The team read it and laughed. I was traveling through Norway and stayed with a friend's family. The dad worked as an engineer. Normal job, normal hours. The American guest in the house asked him about his career trajectory. The dad said he'd been doing the same job for 20 years. The American looked shocked. "You never got promoted?" The dad said he did once, to team leader, but he stepped back down after a year. "Why?" the American asked. The dad said the extra stress wasn't worth the extra money. The American couldn't believe it. "But isn't that giving up?" The dad said, "No, it's choosing what I value." The American asked what that was. The dad said, "Time with my family, peace of mind, enjoying my work without extra pressure." The American said, "But don't you want to achieve more?" The dad smiled. "I have achieved what I wanted. A good life." The American left that conversation looking like he'd witnessed someone surrender. I was working at a cafe in Vienna when an American regular came in looking defeated. She'd been living in Austria for 6 months. She sat down and said, "I think I'm broken." I asked what happened. She said, "Everyone here is so content, and I can't stop thinking I should be doing more. But I'm already doing everything. I just don't know what more even means anymore." I told her that sounded exhausting. She nodded. "It is. I'm so tired of being tired." I asked if she'd tried just being content. She said, "I don't know how." That conversation changed how I see these stories. It's not that Americans are bad or wrong. It's that they've been taught that average is the worst thing you can be. That being ordinary means you failed. That if you're not exceptional, you're nobody. And that's a heavy weight to carry. So when they see people in other countries just living normal, happy, average lives, it doesn't compute. Because back home, average feels like death. But here's what I've learned from living in Europe and talking to hundreds of people from different cultures. Being average isn't giving up. It's not settling. It's not lacking ambition. Sometimes being average just means you're content. You have enough. You do work you like or at least tolerate. You have time for people you love. You enjoy small things. You're not trying to be someone you're not. And that's actually pretty great. The funny part is, Americans will travel thousands of miles to find themselves, to discover what makes them happy, to learn from other cultures. And then when they see people who've already figured that out, they think those people need help. They can't imagine that maybe, just maybe, the rest of the world isn't missing something. Maybe Americans are carrying something extra that they don't need. I'm not saying the American way is wrong. Drive and ambition built incredible things. But there's a difference between wanting to do something great and being terrified of being ordinary. One comes from passion. The other comes from fear. And fear is exhausting. My friend in Prague, the one who got asked what makes him special, told me something funny last year. He said, "I finally figured out what makes me special. Nothing. I'm just a normal guy living a normal life. And I'm completely fine with that." The American backpacker who asked him that question probably never understood the answer. But maybe someday he will. And trust me, these stories never stop coming. Because every day, somewhere in the world, an American is discovering that being average isn't the tragedy they thought it was. It's just life. And life is pretty good when you stop fighting.